Hi, so I came across this exercise bike, and when it was in one piece it looked like this. And so of course what I did was remove all the extraneous bits until we got to the mechanism, which is right here, and we'll have a close-up of the mechanism in a minute. But that is the second exercise bike I found in a tip inside of 2 weeks. Exercise bikes, I mean, they're one of those things that we think is a good idea to buy because we're going to do some exercise, and then it lives in the back of the garage or the loft or just somewhere until we're sick of hanging our clothes on it or tripping over it, and it goes to the bin. It's just an amazing amount of them you find lying around. And I just thought it was astounding and that really I couldn't pass it by. So I picked it up, pulled it to bits, and here it is. Let's have a close-up of it. Okay, so there it is. It is actually a beautiful mechanism. Now, it's a magnetic shoe bike. There is the magnetic shoe there that's raised and lowered by this effectively brake cable here that creates resistance on this aluminium disc. That aluminium disc is being rotated by this pulley system. So here's where the pedal went, rotating that large pulley, and there's an idler there, tensioner, that rotates that smaller pulley, rotating this larger one, rotating the smaller one that actually rotates the aluminium disc right here. So we've got a beautifully made pulley system. And there is the magnetic shoe right there. It's a 6 neodymium magnets there on that shoe, and I don't want those, so I'm going to remove that. But when you find a mechanism like this that is just so beautiful, you really have to think, what is it that you can do with it? Now, we are obviously concerned at the moment with generators, so what I'm going to do really is turn this into a generator. And to be honest, I'm not 100% sure how I'm going to do that, so I'm going to have a look at it and see what we can do. The driving of it obviously would come off of this square shaft here, and I've kept one of the pedals because I can take the pedal off and make that a crank handle, so I could certainly crank it by hand. The other thing obviously we could do is we could attach a wind turbine to that. We could put some fan blades on it and get the wind to turn it. Now the wind is not directly turning this disc, remember. It's turning through this pulley system to turn that disc. So the speed of that is going to be vastly increased, and we can use that. So I'm thinking of some kind of generator where we basically stick a load of magnets on the rim and then a load of coils and put some kind of blade or crank handle on it, and we could attach it to a water wheel and we'll make a generator out of that. Now obviously this cost me nothing but the effort of asking the guy, can I have it? And when he said yes, then it was just the effort of sawing it up, really. All I've done is remove all of the bolts, and this is the central mechanism. I don't like it particularly, so I am going to grind some of this stuff off with an angle grinder till we get the bare mechanism, and then be able to have a closer look at it and think, what are we going to do with it? Okay, so I took an angle grinder to it, chopped off all the extraneous stuff, and this is what I was left with. So this is the core of the machine. Now, I just think it's gorgeous, actually. It's got a real Victorian look about it to me. And of course that immediately makes you think of something steampunkish. So I thought what I would go for is a hand-cranked steampunk style generator. Now, it may not be efficient, and to be honest, I don't really care. I want the thing to look gorgeous, really. So we'll give it a go trying to do something like that, trying to steampunk that up into a hand-cranked generator. But that's the basics of it. So of course, to do something like that, what we need is a lump of really nice wood. So I got this butcher's block from the local store, chopped a couple of uprights out of some timber I had lying around. They'll be the uprights for it, and this thing is going to basically sit on those uprights. Now obviously the uprights are too long, but that's so that I can insert them into the metal. The whole thing will drop down. The crank handle, I just sawed the pedal off and it left me with this really rather awesome crank handle. So it's going to be fairly heavy duty fixings. I'm talking about 8mm bolts, that kind of thing. A little bit of trimming of this timber to fit in the centre there, because that's 6.5mm. I've cut the timbers 7.5 so that I'll cut a little shoulder on them, and that will slot the timbers down. Probably means taking these edge bits off here and here so that I can get the timbers in. But that's the essential plan of it. Now all I have to do is trim those timbers and fit this thing together. There it is, finished. To be honest, I think it's lovely. And it cost me all of 2 hours of my time on a Saturday and next to nothing, because I obviously got this from the bin, the wood I had lying around. If I had to pay for the wood, I guess about a £5 or something like that. Now I could finish this up as a generator, and put a load of magnets around this disc and some coils, we could have a generator. But I can think of other uses for something like this. I mean, one thing is obviously it would make a great science fair project. The other thing, I think it's a thing that's lovely in itself, so it would certainly make a great gift, very unusual, bit of a talking point. The other thing I think it's useful for is a test bed for testing coil and magnet arrangements. As we all know what the efficient arrangement is, but what about the sufficient arrangement? An arrangement that's just good enough to actually generate enough for you so that you can spend the time with found materials you've resourced from somewhere else. So as a quick demonstration of that, what I did was I took one of these. It's a shaded pole motor, and you find them absolutely everywhere. These are what you find in desktop fans, they're what you find in microwaves, they're just absolutely everywhere, and I have something like 20 of them. But I've never thought before about the possibility of using them. But what I did was saw out that centre section, which is right there, and then these two arms drop off. So I put a bit of super glue on them to make sure that they stay in place, and I've got the coil attached to my meter. And you would think that would be appalling. That just wouldn't do the job. Now I've got a couple of N52 neodymiums here. They've got 3.6 kilograms of pull. They're 3 millimeters thick and they're 20 millimeters across. And if I just temporarily put them on there, then I've got myself a generator arrangement. If I pop that in there like that and just make sure it's not touching anything, hold it down firmly, just give that a spin, it might catch. No, we're good. And then we spin that up. We're getting 10 volts out of that. I mean, that's just crazy, isn't it? That with that little arrangement we can actually generate 10 volts on this little demonstration. Tells me that's certainly worth a look at, and I wouldn't have thought of looking at that unless I had some kind of test bed to try it on. So there's a whole host of coil and magnet arrangements that you could test on something like this. Now, in order to make that, like I say, I just looked around until I found one of these. Used some spare wood, minimum of tools. I used a drill and a saw, and I did have an angle grinder to take these off, but a hacksaw would do that just as well. So I think making one of these, actually, if you are interested in generators and investigating generators, would be an ideal tool, an awesome tool to have around in your workshop so that you could test those arrangements. I just love it, actually. So there we go. One thing to do with a discarded exercise bike. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope it inspired some ideas, and thank you very much for watching.